working with cholesterol, but we're still going to pretend that we are working with real clients. We want to get that in our head that we are finding natural level and that kind of thing. So the instructor station right here straight ahead, that's the center of the room for me. So from instructor station this way is group 1. From the instructor station to this way is group 2. This side of the room, group 1, we're pretending that y'all all looked up and every single client came in with a level 3 hair. And what were they doing this morning? They were going to 5. Okay, so y'all have a level 3 client. We found her natural level and she is sitting at a 3. She wants to be a 5. So if we were using color and we were not going to do any pre-lightening before, she wanted to go from a level 3 to a 5, what developer are you going to use? Why is that? 2 levels. Okay, so what is darker, a 3 or a 5? A 3. So because the 3 is a 5 and you're going lighter 2 levels, that means you're lifting those 2 levels and depositing at the same time. So that's why you automatically know she's a 3, she wants to be a 5, you would use 20 volume. At that point, the papers that I gave y'all first day, it gave you an underlying pigment chart. What's the underlying pigment of a level 5? I don't expect anybody to remember that, but what is it? Wouldn't be yellow. Yellow's gonna be like 10. Could be an orange. You got it right there in your hand, Valerie. That little bitty piece of paper. Right on the front. What's that, a level 5? Orange, okay? So you know right off the bat that she's a 3, she wants to be a 5, we're gonna use 20 volume. That's going to lift, which is gonna reveal what? The underlying pigment, which is orange, okay? So orange is what kind of tone, warm or cool? Okay, does she want to have warm tone at the end or does she want to have cool at the end? She's gonna tell you. She's gonna tell you. She might tell you wrong because she's gonna be like, I don't want to see no red, and then she's gonna pick out a 6 red. You know, so okay, what do you want, lady? You want red or not red? But so at that point, that's when you decide what color to put on her hair. If we were doing color today, that's when you would decide, okay, I'm going to do a 5 cool because she does not want to see warm tones, or she wants to see warm tones, and that's okay to reveal those warm tones because then we're going to go back and tone it something else anyway. Does that make sense for everybody? I know I'm talking fast. I feel like we have less time in this half of the day for some reason. I don't know why. I guess because we take the lunch or whatever, like the 30 minutes extra. Okay, so this side of the class, they were a 6 going to a 3, right? Okay, so y'all are a natural level 6. Your client came in, she's a 6. She wants to be a 3. So which one's darker, which one's lighter? 6 is lighter, so you automatically know that her natural level is a 6, and she's going to go darker at a 3. What developer would you use? You're going darker, so her natural level is a 6. She wants to automatically, you automatically know she's going darker. So what's gonna be your developer? 10. Why 10?
You're only using color and not light.
Right. Okay, so y'all are going to use 20 volume because you're lifting 2 levels and depositing at the same time. Y'all would use 10 volume because you're only depositing. She's going darker. If you stay within 2-3 levels of that natural level, then you could use just that 10 volume without an extra step. If she was too much lighter than a 6, you might have to do a filler formula first. That's a whole nother ballgame. So today, if y'all were a natural level 6, your client wanted to be a 3, you're only going to deposit. You don't want to lift, you're not revealing anything. So it's going to be a 10 volume only. At that point, warm and cool would already come into play because she's going to tell you, I want this color right here. And so whatever you mix up and put on there, that's what she's going to get. You don't get to change it at that point. So does that make sense with everybody between group 1 and group 2 if we were doing a pretend scenario? So today, we are just going to use cholesterol because we want to get down just the application first. With a root application or a regrowth application, you're only going to paint the root or the new growth of the hair. No more, no less. So like on this mannequin that I did this morning, we did the first 2 quadrants. We did the root only. That's the only thing we did. You don't do this down here. Typically when they have regrowth, they have already got their hair done. Now they have roots because Mother Nature did not follow suit and give them the color that they got 6 weeks ago. So their natural has come in and you want to match it one way or the other. So you only paint what needs to be painted. If you paint from root to end, what happens? Then
Because it takes lifting.
yes. So it may not lift if you're using color, but it will stack pigment and stack pigment and stack pigment. It's unnecessary. So if you're putting color, so let's say y'all are going from a 6 to a 3, y'all are painting color on there, you're using 10 volume. 10 volume's not real harsh, but it is harsh if you're using it every single time and it doesn't need it. That 10 volume is still going to lift that cuticle a little bit when it doesn't need to be lifted. That's where the damage comes in at. Because every time that cuticle opens, it never closes 100%. So at some point it's just going to open and open and open and open, and then there you are. Same thing over here. If you're doing 20 volume, then if this is already done and you're putting 20 volume from that root into that mid down to that end, you're opening that cuticle every 4, 5, 6 weeks, however often your client is coming. You don't want to just keep blowing that cuticle up. It never fully closes. That's when you get breakage, that's when you get split ends, that kind of thing. If this hair is faded and it needs to be freshened up, then that's a whole nother scenario. But you don't necessarily need to or want to paint from the scalp to the ends every time. I refer to the regrowth area as zone 1, the mid as zone 2, and your ends as zone 3. So we're going to refer to this as quad 1, quad 2, quad 3, quad 4. I don't care if you refer to it as 1, 2, 3, 4, but if you start here, you come around this way. If you start here, you come around. However you do it, that's the way it needs to be done. You're creating balance. You're creating asymmetry. Same thing with hair cutting. Again, I'm not teaching you hair cutting. But if you start here cutting hair and your fingers are pointing this way and you pull that hair up and you make that cut and you come around the head and your fingers are pointing the same way every time, it creates a balance. So if you get used to that, no matter what you're doing, cut or color, then it helps you to know where you started and where you finished. You don't second guess yourself. Have I done this? Have I done that? I gotta wait to see if this process is how it works, that kind of thing. You just get in a habit. It's not necessarily a good or bad thing as far as what we're doing today. It just helps you to get in that habit of knowing what you have done and why. Does that make sense to everybody? So to begin with, we're going to work on the front 2 quadrants. What we're going to do is that regrowth only. We are going to do, and like I said earlier, You don't have to have your highlight comb. It's the way I was trained when I went to work as a Rusk educator. It has stuck with me. With us in that part of the industry, you do not take the end of your comb or the end of your brush and separate the hair. They'll almost fire you over that. So, the way I'm doing it today with the highlight comb, it's not necessary. If y'all want to get comfortable doing that, you're welcome to. You can still do that at State Board. It's just once you pick this comb up, you do not put it down. It's not up, down, down, put the brush. This is part of your hand the entire time. You find a way to do the brush and the comb all with one hand without putting anything down. If you want to use strictly the color brush, perfectly okay, not a big deal. But when you take your sections, you want to take a small section. Can y'all see through that piece of hair? Can everybody see through that piece of hair? Okay, can y'all see through that? When you can see through that piece of hair and you take your brush, I'm not using any product right now, you take that brush and you paint that and you paint that there, then you know that this side is painted, this side is painted. Both sides are saturated, okay? If you pick up a ginormous piece of hair, can you see through that? Is it going to be saturated? What's going to be saturated? Outsides only. You might get lucky and it might seep into the middle a little bit, but if you paint here, and you paint here, and then you leave that, there's a real good chance that when that processes, your lady has a lot of bleeds. That's what it's called when the product bleeds into areas that it maybe not need to be. In this case, it needs to be there. You need it to bleed a whole lot. So when you part that hair off, you don't have good saturation. That's why you take small pieces. You want everything to look even on this side and this side. You don't want it when you part that hair off to be a maybe. You don't want that to look like a calico cat. You don't want it to look a little bit dark here and a little bit light there. You want it to all look even. So when you're doing this, you make sure, and you don't have to take little bitty tiny pieces. This is thin, but you don't want to take like a ginormous piece. If you can read through it, that's always the thing. If you're in a color class anywhere, they're gonna say, can you read through that? If you had a magazine right there, could you see what was on the other side of that hair? So paint one, flip that over, two, you leave that hair right there. You're gonna pick up another piece. You're gonna pick, and you're gonna paint, and you're gonna paint, and you're gonna leave that hair right there. You want to move as fast as you can. If you take sections that are clean, you can see my line. My line is not doing this number. It's not every which way. If you take clean lines, then when you get done, you can let it all fall back over exactly in the same pattern that you did the initial paint. I did one side of these correct with little pieces, and then I did one side real just kind of quick and spotty, but when the other class looked through it, they couldn't tell the difference. So sometimes you get lucky and you take big pieces and it still works out in your favor, and then other times it does not. So I don't know which side I did. I think it was this side, because like this side right here, the root is still like way down here. Like you don't have a 1 inch of lightened hair right there. So keep in mind, 1 inch, we're not fishing. 1 inch is 1 inch, it's not 12. We don't have to lie to anybody and tell them that it's bigger than what it was. Okay? We're not gonna measure this out, but typically you see somebody's regrowth. Somebody that comes in with regrowth, it might be 1 inch, it might be 4 inches. They might be 6 weeks past you of when they need to be sitting in your chair. So sometimes that can change depending on your client and the maintenance that they keep up with. But today you want to paint about 1 inch of hair. Flip that over and paint again. You want to use enough product that you can see it. You do not want to have it all thick and heavy right here and then just a little bit here. The hairline is important. When I pull this hair back, does everything look like it's been painted? And I think this is a side that I tried to purposely do wrong so that you could see error, but then it really didn't end up being wrong at all. But like right there around the hairline, that's still real brown. If they wanted it to be that blonde, they would not be happy, okay? So like on this side, to show y'all, when you pull this back, does it look like it's solid minus that piece right there that I purposely didn't do correct? So if we were doing the whole head, but we're not today, we're dividing the head. If we were doing the whole head, we would paint your perimeters. Your perimeter means quad 1 is painted around the perimeter, all the way around. Quad 2 is painted the perimeter all the way around. 3 and 4. And then you're gonna go in and start picking up thin sections and complete that quad, complete this quad. Today, we're only doing quad 1 and quad 2. So do not paint the perimeter of section 3 and 4. It's gonna be totally different. So to keep any confusion off of 3 and 4, we're not necessarily painting the perimeter of each quad. Have I lost anybody? I know I'm talking fast and I'm about to demo what I'm doing. So I'm gonna use lightener so that y'all can see what I'm doing and then like the end result. I always use a scale. I'm funny about measure. If your product, and I already put my partner on it, and I couldn't see this if I had my glasses on. If somewhere on this tub of lightener says mix 1 to 1, that means 1 ounce to 1 ounce, 10 grams to 10 grams, 1 pound to 1 pound. Does everybody understand that? So you have 1 part of your lightener to 1 part of your developer. When I'm using a scale, I'm always gonna set it in grams. That's the way I was trained, that's what I do. I can't tell you what to do in ounces. If you're using a tube of color has lines down the side of the tube. That with a color key to roll it out is gonna give you a close guesstimate of what an ounce is. And then you would have a beaker for your developer. You set that beaker down and walk off, all that residue runs down, you didn't even get all of it. So that's why I use a scale. Everything goes in the bowl. I don't have a beaker to wash. I don't have a color key. I'm not guessing on a half an ounce or an ounce on the side of the tube. So if it says mix 1 to 1, you mix 1 to 1. If it says mix 1 to 2, 1 to 2. If it says mix 1 to 6, that's the way they recommend it. You have to know the rules before you can break the rules. Most stylists like the consistency of their lightener the way they like it. If it's too thin and watery, then it's going to run everywhere. If you have a foil on the hair, if you're doing highlights in a foil and your bleach is too runny, it's going to run out of that foil and it's going to cause a bleed. That's not what you want. If it's too thick, you feel like you're trying to push mud. So know what they tell you to do, and then we might break that rule a little bit. Does everybody understand that with lightener? Lightener only. Color, if it says mix 1 to 1, we're mixing 1 to 1. I don't care what consistency you like. If it says mix 1 to 2, we're mixing 1 to 2. Rust, for whatever reason, is 1 to 1.5. Who come up with that? We still don't know. But either way, it's 1 to 1.5. That's how they have recommended it so that it matches their color swatch book. If you deviate from that, then you're not gonna get what that swatch book tells you, no matter how many rules of natural level, desired level, blah, blah, blah. Out of all that you find, or that you go through the steps, you will not get the same end result if you deviate from that in color. So I've already put lightener powder in here. I'm using 40 volume because it's a mannequin, and no matter what, it's not gonna do what I want it to do. Color is gonna be the same way. If I were to put color on this mannequin, it is not gonna do exactly what we want it to do. And does anybody know why that is? What is it? It's not yet because there is no body heat. Okay? You have to have body heat in order for color or lightener to work. If your color line says use heat, and it tells you to use a medium heat, then use a medium heat. If it tells you to use no heat, then don't use heat. Again, they have given you that recommendation for a reason as far as that color line. Rust is no heat. They've got one piece of their color line that recommends heat. Everything else, lightener, permanent color, MI cream color, it's all no heat. Matrix, it kind of falls back and forth. Paul Mitchell, it falls back and forth. When you are mixing your lightener, and I'm gonna walk around and show everybody, this is not mixed well. This is like cake batter that has not been mixed well. See how you can still see, even without that, you can see the lumps in it. If you can see some of the powder and lumps, then it's not mixed properly. Okay? So if you apply lightener to the hair that is not mixed, you can see like the lumps and bumps in it. So same as cake batter. You wouldn't pour cake batter into the pan if it still had clumps of unmixed cake mix, right? Or flour or whatever. If you apply lightener to the hair that is not mixed properly, see all the little bumps and lumps? It creates hot spots. So some people use a whisk to mix their color and or lightener, and they do it so that they can get it mixed very well. Some lighteners, when they sit, and color too, but mainly lighteners, when they sit for a minute, grow. It just starts like boiling up, and it's like, oh, what are you doing? And then if you go back and you mix it, it'll calm it back down, but that's where it's oxidizing. So this, to me, see how when I pick that brush up, it does not drip back off? It's got like a little bit, tiny little hang to it. That's too thick to me. I don't like that. So I'm gonna add more. And there again, that's where like experience comes in, and knowing the consistency that you like. And I have been halfway through a color before, and some lighteners will do this. It's like it just gets thick out of nowhere. And I'm like, well, what just happened? And see, when I pick that up, see how it like hangs more with the drip? That's the consistency that I like. I don't use this brush after I have mixed with it. To me, that's messy. To me, that's not professional. So I'm going to pick one side of the bowl or the other, and that's gonna be my side for like excess. I'm gonna get that off of there. I'm either gonna have a towel, another bowl or something. I'm gonna switch to a clean brush. That gives you a very clean application. So this bowl has a pour spout there. That's where I'm gonna put that. If I put my brush over here, it's going to put it in where I have swiped the brush off, and at that point, I'm gonna get bleach or product all over my hands. I'm not going to wear gloves. If I was doing a color, I would have gloves on. Y'all have to wear gloves regardless if it's cholesterol or not, but I'm going to break that rule as far as myself. So that is one of those moments of you do as I say and not as I do. And if you get lightener on your hands, it'll turn like a little white spot there. It's real fun to explain that to people, but then it just disappears. Is everybody sectioned off into 4 parts? Okay, and everybody has cholesterol. Okay, so I'm going to demo one side, and then I want y'all to do both sides. And then JC and I will walk around and check for saturation, for evenness, that kind of thing. And it's harder to see with cholesterol, but with lightener, as y'all can see, like you can actually see what you're doing. So next week, depending on today, we might actually start working with lightener. Keep whatever pieces that you're not working with, keep them clipped out of the way. If you were working on somebody, let's say like with your hair, so she's got split color, she might need the purple side touched up, or she might need the black side touched up. Either way, she might not, whatever's going on that purple side, to be on that black side. So you might not want to take that hair with product on it and lay it this way, one way or the other, depending on where you're starting. If that's the case, just take a full, you can put product there, conditioner, it doesn't matter, just stick it to the hair so that the full will stay, and then put that hair on it. And then that'll protect it when you're flipping over. Today, it's not gonna matter because we're only gonna do the regrowth right there. It's not gonna make a difference. But in her situation, you might want to put something on the head to protect it from going one way or the other. So, I lost my comment. So, when I'm doing this, and you are welcome to do this too, although I'm not gonna do the whole head, I'm still gonna paint my perimeter on this one quadrant. Do not paint this quadrant in the back. What I'm about to do not do this because it's gonna mess us up for our next demonstration. So when you're doing this, you're gonna take that hair and you wanna kind of pull it, not tight, but so that there's a definite line. The right side of my bowl is where I used for the excess, so I swipe that off a little bit. I'm coming in at an angle and I'm hitting right on the root. I am not going in with this brush and do not do that with your client. Even if it's one, don't do that. Don't be like hard and swipe and hard and swipe. The reason why these bristles seem soft until there's a chemical on that scalp. You will irritate that scalp and cause them to have a chemical burn. So you want to come in light-handed and get as close to the scalp as you can without hitting the scalp and being harsh. You will never brush the hair before a chemical surface. It's okay to comb through with a big comb and get tangles out, but you never want to hit the scalp with any type of comb or a bristle of a brush, anything, because that's opening that scalp up for irritation with a chemical about to go on it. Does everybody understand that part? Okay, so I'm painting still just that 1 inch. When I get ready to do this front, I'm gonna pull this hair back away from the face so that I can come in right on that hairline and paint that 1 inch. When we start working with actual chemical doing this, there is a barrier cream or protective cream. It depends on who you're talking to what they call it. That will be placed on the hairline of the client or the mannequin. That one protects from staining the skin, which if you're like me, my skin just hangs onto it for days, it feels like. Or if that person has a very sensitive hairline, it will protect from an irritation across their forehead or maybe on the nape or over their ears. When you get to this bottom part, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to lift that hair up kind of tight and paint that 1 inch. If we were doing a regrowth application on the entire head, we would do all 4 quadrants that way. We're only doing this one, so if anybody needs to come look at this, it's this quadrant only. I did not put anything on this quadrant. We are going to do this other quadrant, but I didn't do it yet because we're not doing that now. If y'all want to go ahead and do that, because y'all are going to do it, you can do both quadrants. So if you do that, you're still going to do the same thing. And you're going to paint this side, not this side. You will not paint the back. Do not paint a root on the back of your mantle. So what that does is that sets like a area for you. It keeps you organized. So when I pick up my first section, it's already been done. But I'm still going to swipe it again and again, just to be on the safe side. I'm going to get more product on my brush. I'm taking my comb, I'm lifting that up, I'm painting, I'm flipping that over, and I'm painting the back side. You paint the front side, you paint the back side. If you take too big of a piece, that middle will not be saturated. Make sure that you get the front of the hairline. That's the last thing that you want, is for somebody to get to their car and sit there and analyze it in the sunlight, and then come back into you and point out some random spot right on the front of their head, and you've already got your second client behind them going. So if you are using this only, then that's the only thing that you have in your hand. You're going to take this, you're going to do the same thing, but see, that's, to me, is not a real clean thing. So that, and over, and anybody who wants to come up here and look, or if I can walk this around, because we're, like, she's got the video set up, either way, see, that's on that front side. I'm flipping that over, and it's on that back side as well. I'm making sure to get that front hairline. And the front hairline has already been painted because I did the perimeter. Does anybody have any questions before you start with your cholesterol? The perimeter, yes. But you do not paint the perimeter of your back pieces. Only the front.
Does anybody want to come look? No.
So y'all go ahead and start with the cholesterol. I'm going to finish. That's hard for me to do. Because when I trained with Rusk as an educator, that's the way they do it. They'll almost fire you.
No, I'm talking about the point of it now.
Oh, because that's the highlight comb.
So it can be
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, because it's just swiping through.
Are you saying metal? Cause yeah, like color, it always says no metal on the side.
Well, bowls and that kind of stuff, I don't know why it does that, but just for this, it's not that big a deal, you're just swiping.
Well, like compared to, there are the plastic, right?
Yeah.
I prefer those.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever used a plastic, ever.
And they're thinner, and when you're folding, it's easier to fold it in. I've known people that have folded with, but it's just.
I'm trying to think when I don't think I've ever used a plastic one. I think the only time I may have attempted to use a plastic one was with heat and using it to like protect from the heat of a flat iron or curling iron or something like that. But other than that, I've never used one.
You ever start with the bottom and go up rather than?
You can, but if you start from the bottom and go up, this is what you're gonna have to do every time. So just giving you an example of that, you're gonna have to part this off, clip this out of the way, paint. Part that off, clip it out of the way, paint. Where with this, so like when I go through this and get this done, I end on the bottom and then everything just falls over and out of the way of that next section. So when y'all are in your styling class, think about what I said as far as the color is concerned, and these little small sections. When people flat iron their hair, and I'm guilty of this because I'm lazy with my own hair, when people flat iron their own hair and they pick up these big chunks of hair, guess what's getting the heat? The outside. Is that middle getting any heat? Nope. Is that middle getting any type of flattening or curl or anything that you want to do as far as heat's concerned? Nope. So think about that the same as with the chemical service. And when you're doing a color, like if we were actually working with color, I mean, I am working with a chemical, but you are working with cholesterol. If you were actually working with a color itself, it's working in the bowl. Like, that color does not know, well, I'm not on the hair yet, I can't start working yet. It's working while it's in the bowl. So you want to work fast, but accurate. Some people cannot talk and work at the same time. If you're one of those people, then do not talk to your client. Let her jibber jabber all day long and just stand there and nod. Yep, sounds good to me, you know. But if you cannot carry on the conversation and work, it will cost you in the salon. It will cost you money in the salon. If you're not working, you're not making any money. And you want it to work on the head and not in that bowl. So there's no heat on that bowl. Okay, so let me pause that. So I have finished that piece. So now I'm taking this hair and it will basically come right back over in the same sections that I did. I'm not combing that down. I'm not doing anything to that. I'm letting that fall back over and let it stay there. Do not move it at that point. If you comb it and mush it down, you're not letting air get in there. Without air, it's not going to oxidize. Without oxidation, your color result's going to be a little iffy there on the end. Maybe to the other side. But you want to work fast, because although there's not any heat in that bowl, air is still hitting it, it's still oxidizing, and it gets weaker as it sits in that bowl. What is it?
I just opened this mannequin and her hair's falling out.
Yes, they're awful. If you get one of the blonde mannequins, they're like platinum blonde. I swear they have bald spots on them.
Can we put down the color brush?
If you want to do this, then you constantly, this is what you do. I'm gonna go through this like, okay, so I'm using the brush and the comb. I'm going to flip that comb out of the way. That brush never gets put down. For every time you pick up a brush, put down a comb, pick it back up, 3 seconds, 2 seconds on every little section adds up to time on the whole head. So you want to get in the habit of never putting anything down. And you do not have to use the comb. It's the way I do it because I didn't want to get fired. I like working for them. But once you get used to it, it's harder to not use it. And it just makes for like a super, super clean application. And when you do little things in the salon that are different than the person standing next to you, your clients notice that kind of stuff. So if you have a super messy station, you've got color bowls left over from 3 days ago, it looks like a chemistry project growing out of it. You've got yesterday's lunch sitting there, 6 water bottles, and the person next to you is like a super clean station. The only thing that they've got there is what they're using on that particular client. People notice stuff like that. They will watch your every move, and they'll ask you, why are you putting your brush down? She's not. Why are you putting your comb down? She's not. So anything that you can do to stand out to your client in a positive way is a good thing. Negative attention is attention, but it's not always the best attention to build a clientele. And y'all don't forget that your chairs move. They go up, they go down, they go round and round. If you need to fix your chair, if your arms are like this, your chair's too high. If you feel elevation in your elbows and your shoulder, then your chair is too high. You in a salon are gonna hurt yourself, and you're gonna be tired and fatigued before you get a second client. If you need to let it down for the top of the head and raise it up for the lower half, that's okay too. That's why it's got a pump on it. It'll go up and down. If you are right-handed, try to stand where your product is on your right side. If you have to push your chair a little bit one way or the other, don't run the person next to you over. But if y'all need to move kits, if y'all need to move whatever so that you can push chairs one way or the other, if you need to move it forward or back, like physically move the chair forward or backward, you can do that. If you're in a salon and you're right-handed, but you are working like this, and you're reaching, one, it's working your elbow and your shoulder for an unnecessary reason. So that's wear and tear on your body. Two, for every 3 seconds that you do like this and reach back and reach back and reach back, that's 3 seconds all the way down the head on every little section. That adds up as far as time to get that application complete.
Is it considered unprofessional to have your client facing the aisle, not the mirror?
Mm-mm.
It's not?
Nope. A lot of people won't let their client face the mirror. A lot of times if a client can see the mirror, they're like this the whole time. They're just digging in their hair. And it's like, lady, get your hand out of your hair so I can work. Bless you. feel, as far as what we're doing, but just to get it right, knowing the parts of it. So y'all, you want to make sure that you have enough product on each section that you can see it. Like if you look up here at my mannequin, if I tilt this over, and it's harder with cholesterol and especially on a dark mannequin, but if I turn this over and y'all look, y'all can see that product even from across the room. But it's different because it's on lighter hair where it's already been lightened. But you want to see that product on the hair. And if it's heavy on the left piece of that section, you want it heavy on the right. I wouldn't say to, you don't want to waste product. If it is saturated on the front side of the piece, on the back side of the piece, that's all you need. You don't need extra product there. But you do want to make sure that it's evenly saturated. So one thing, like as I've walked around, what I've noticed is when you've got that piece picked up, this is what the majority of the room is doing. It's not wrong, but it will cost you in a salon time-wise. Take your brush, I've got product on it, I'm gonna put it on there, I'm swipe, 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 okay? If you're doing this, if you're picking up a piece of hair and you're like, okie dokie, let's do this. And it's almost like you're petting that piece of hair from left to right, that's wasted time. You need to have the product on the brush, swipe, 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 swipe. The only way you would need to pet that is if you had a very wide piece of hair, and you might have to hit it 3 times versus twice. But if you're picking up hair and it's thin enough that you can see through it, you don't need a whole ton of product, but you do want it saturated. So I sound like I'm contradicting myself. You don't want product just gobbed up on it, but you want enough that it's there. And you don't want to pet it. You don't want to be like, swipe here, swipe here, swipe here, swipe here. Let's just swipe that just a couple extra times for fun. And then let's swipe this a couple of times. That's petting the hair. Put it on there and move on to the next section. Because what happens, if you're using small enough pieces, you're using an appropriate amount of product, after about 5-10 minutes of it processing, even before you're completely finished with the whole head, this has already oxidized at that point. You can kind of flip through the hair and see what it's doing or what it's not doing, and if you need to reapply in a certain area, you can. It's almost like painting a wall. You just want to get it on there. Yes. The front end. You'll do the front end.
I know we've gone over like time management in Miss Christine's haircare class. But in coloring and lightening, it's very important because it's time sensitive, like she was saying, you know, you want to get it on there.
Get it off.
Yeah.
And never ever rinse your color bowl. Whatever products you have in there, color lightener, never rinse it until you 100% know you don't need it anymore. And I will explain that in just a second. Yep, you done? You done this side? Okay, so you can take this and just start. Because that's what it's gonna process. You're not gonna leave it, you get finished, you're not gonna leave, or you're not gonna leave one section or the other. So try to get it back down to the middle.
and you know, you take the brush and you pull this way. And you come up from here to here, it should be easy. So at that, if you feel like it's twisted, then your brush is especially going to have this rotation.
Because if you start, okay, so what she was asking is it gonna have the same end result from that very first swipe of the brush down to that very last? That's why you apply it as fast as you can, because it is somewhat working in this bowl. So if you have a 30-minute processing time, you want to get it on there as fast as you can so that it can process for that 30 minutes more on the head than in the bowl. If you have somebody with gray hair, where are you gonna start first? Huh?
Oh, like make two separate.
You might have to do that. So she said you make two different formulas, so you might have to make two different formulas. But whether you have one bowl or 5 bowls, if you have somebody who is who has aggressive gray in the front, you apply that color there first. If they have aggressive gray in the temple area, over the ear, the neck, the nape area, if they have gray there, and you know that that's a 30-minute processing time, or typically gray is going to be 45-minute processing time, you go ahead and you apply that right there, because that color is fresh. It has not sat in the bowl. It is as strong as it's ever going to be. You put that on there first, and then that whole time that you're applying the rest of the color, what's already processing? Or the gray, yep. So always, if you've got somebody with, and if their whole head is gray, if their whole head is white, there's nothing you can do but work fast and furious. But you definitely want to do what they see first. If their whole head is gray, then it's a no-brainer to do the hairline and the part line first. Because that's what they're gonna see the minute they sit in their car and pick their hair apart when they leave it.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring some more around.
Okay, so y'all, another thing when you're doing color as far as time is concerned, if that timer is set for 30 minutes, you don't time it from when you start the application, you time it on that very last piece of hair. So if you dilly-dally around and you talk, and you stand around, you talk, you stand around. This, where you first started, it may end up with 60 minutes worth of processing time. Where this back here is gonna get just its 30 minutes because it's done most of its work in the bowl. So that's why you work fast and efficient, but you do not start a timer until that last piece of hair is done.
Just keep it off the front. Just keep it off the front.
If it's color, it wouldn't matter. It's gonna process 35 minutes if it's not gray, 45 minutes if it is gray on most color lines. If it's lightener, you absolutely keep a check on what's going on because there's not a time per se on lightener. It's when it's done. I'm using lightener today to show y'all the end result, the visual. So if I was really doing lightener on somebody and I was doing an all over application such as this with lightener, I would not start in the front. Just because if I start in the back and it needs to come off first,
It's easier to walk.
I can shampoo that off first without affecting the front. If I start in the front and it's taking me forever to get it on there, and then next thing I know, this is ready. It looks like it's about to go in the floor if I don't get it to the shampoo bowl. How do you shampoo them? You gonna have them lean their head over the bowl? You know, they're gonna have lids running down in their eyes, you know, so always start in the back, and that's for foils too. That way if that process is faster than you expected, you could shampoo that out or pull them out and not affect the front.
Will you check that?
Are you peddling cholesterol?
I might be.
So if you have a little infection, you can basically compare it. So even if you had done a coat, you would do a coat, you can see how that's working on top. So you don't have to do that with right here, I see that, you can see it right here, you can see it right here. So you might want to put a little bit more, that's a little color you can Okay, so has everybody got your first 2 quadrants done? Okay, so that is your virgin color. No, nope, that's not your virgin color. That is your retouch. That's your color retouch. Okay, so notice that we did the root only. That's because it is a root touch-up or a regrowth touch-up. We did not pull it through to the ends because of what I said earlier. Okay, it builds the pigment or it stacks the developer, which causes porosity issues in the hair. If this was color and from here to here had faded from last appointment and you've got color left over in your bowl, this has been doing what in that bowl? Okay, so at that point, it has been there the entire time through the application plus the 35 or 45 minutes of the processing time. If this down here is faded, you have options. You can take this color, you don't have to be exact, you can take large pieces, paint that on there and pull it through, just mush it through, okay? You can take demi-colors or semi-permanent colors that are usually in bottles, so Shades EQ, Rusk, Gloss, PM Shines, I think Joico has one, I don't know what it's called, but anyway, they come in bottles and they have a completely different developer. It's that low peroxide developer that I told y'all about. It's usually a 1.9%, okay? That's when you could take that and apply to the mids and the ends. That freshens up what has faded without a full application from the root all the way to the end of the hair, causing porosity damage. Or at the shampoo bowl, you can rinse this out or add a little bit of water to it. If this is color, not lightener, if this is color, you can add water to that and it will emulsify just like shampoo, and you can work that in the hair at the shampoo bowl along with anything that you may have left over. Leave that on 5 minutes. If you're putting it on like here, you would do it the last 5 to 10 minutes of the processing time. That would brighten these ends back up, the mids and the ends back up. If you do it at the shampoo bowl, same thing, 5 to 10 minutes, just enough time to let it grab some of the tonal value, whether it's warm or cool, whatever the case may be, and then you go on about your day, shampoo, condition, cut, blow drop, whatever. So does that help everybody understand why we're doing the root only right there? And how to fix the ends if there is a problem with the ends. And I know this is a lot of information, same as the first 2 days. And I know I talk fast because we have very limited time in here per class session or whatever. This is information that we are going to go over and over and over and over throughout the entire semester. Every time we do a color, every time we do a chemical, this is going to be information that we instill in your brain. So I do expect you to pay attention today, but I understand if you don't remember word for what I'm saying today. That's totally understandable. The back half of the head, at least one, is it already 2 o'clock?
Mm-hmm.
What time did they get out?
3:30.
Oh, okay. Good Lord, I was like, wait a minute, we just got started. I'm thinking, is it 2 o'clock? Is it time to go home? So on the back half of the head, we're gonna do 1 quadrant first to make sure that we have time to do a complete section of what we're about to do. If you finish this complete section, I do want you to move on to the other half just so that you can get in habit, okay? So what we're gonna do now is considered a virgin color. A virgin color means that natural level 3 has come in, that natural level 6 has come in, and they are 100% natural. They have never put lightener on their hair, they have never put color on their hair, they have virgin hair, okay? When you're doing virgin hair, it's a very unique and a one-time only deal. once somebody has put color on their hair, it's colored, it's no longer natural. The next time you see that person, the only thing that's a true natural is their root, is their regrowth. Until they have shaved their head and it has grown completely out from the scalp, they have color on their hair. I don't care if it's been 6 months or 6 years. If they have not cut it off, it is still there. So, with a virgin application, you do not start at the root. Okay? A virgin application, you do not start at the root. Does anybody know why? Okay, so right here, everybody had it. It's the body heat. So if I intended on this to also be blonde, but I started at the root, that is so close to the scalp where the body heat is escaping, it's going to process faster than it is on the mid and the ends of the hair. So, like I told y'all a couple weeks ago, I'm gonna refer to the hair strand in zones. Zone 1 is your root. Zone 2 is your mid. Zone 3 is your end. Okay, so if you start in zone 1 and then you go ahead down to the end of the hair, that zone 1 is going to process faster because it's in the direct body heat that's escaping out of the scalp. That's called a hot root. People will refer to that as hot roots. She gave me hot roots. No, I didn't give you anything. I just didn't know what I was doing. Okay? So, if you create hot roots on somebody, what that means is this with, so we were doing 20 volume with y'all, right? From a 3 to a 5 with 20 volume. If you put 20 volume on the scalp first, before the mid and the ends, that's lifting and developing at the same time. But it's lifting more than it's doing anything because of the heat. So it's going to reveal what faster? Underlying pigment. That's where you get the hot root. That's going to look more orange than this because it's in direct heat. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? So when you are doing virgin hair and you are lifting, whether you're going from a 3 to a 5 or you're using a lightener, do not start at the root. Do not. You're going to skip down to zone 2 or the mid shaft. This piece of hair might be shorter than something down here on the bottom. Your client might have hair to her waist. So you kind of have to judge of how much you feel like is a root, how much you consider is a mid, and how much you consider an end. So if I just have, I don't know, 5 or 6 inches of hair to work with, I have to give like maybe an inch of root, an inch or 2 of mid, and an inch or so for the end of the hair. Does that make sense to everybody? Let's say that this hair is this long. Am I going to leave just an inch for the root? No. Okay. I might have 3 or 4 inches for mid. I might have a whole big space for mid and still just 2 inches for the root and maybe 2 inches for the end. So depending on the length of the hair is going to depend on how you determine how much to paint on each zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. Have I lost anybody? Okay, so when you do a virgin application that you are lifting, you're going to come off, and this is why we did not paint this perimeter. You're going to come off of the scalp. You need small pieces thin pieces. You're going to paint the front. You're allowing room for zone 1. You're allowing room for zone 3, okay? And then you're gonna paint that back. If you have a situation where you don't want to lay this over on somebody's hair, for example, this, you might not want to get this on this. If that's the case, lay a piece of foil there. Lay this over. You're gonna come all the way through this whole section like that, okay? So you're gonna do this whole, we're gonna call this quad 3. If you are at quad 3, you're gonna do zone 2 first. Okay, zone 2 only. I'm gonna pick that up. It's gotta be a thin piece. Because this is a little narrow piece of hair, I'm coming in at an angle with my brush. Okay? Because it's not wide enough, or it's wide enough, but I don't want it to fall over the side. So I'm coming in, I'm gonna flip this over, and if you can see, that's a thin enough piece that it's already on that side. I just need to make it smooth, because it's kind of clumpy falling through there. So I'm gonna take that brush and pull it back through, okay? I still have zone 1 not painted. Zone 3 not painted. That's gonna fall over, okay? Pick up another small piece. Down. Okay, so zone 2 is being painted. There wasn't as much color on the brush that time. See how I'm just kind of flipping that through my fingers? Paint that. Let that fall over. You're going to do the whole quadrant that way, okay? I'm going to put my gloves on so I can show you this part. My phone's missing. Okay, so we're going to pretend that I've gone through this whole quadrant. At this point, I'm going to get some product on my brush. I'm going to come back, and if you pick up clean sections, you can almost pick up the exact same thing again. Paint right at the root, right at the scalp. Again, don't like jab the person with the color brush. Paint that on there, both sides. If there was enough product on that zone 2, you can pretty much take that and pull that through to the ends, or take just a little bit more product and put that all the way down. Make sure everything's covered. Let that fall back over, okay? I'm gonna pick up this second piece again. Zone 2 has been painted. I'm gonna hit zone 1, the root area. I'm trying not to like really be aggressive at that scalp. Cover that, okay? You can lay this in your hand like this instead of like raking it through. Just lay that over your hand. You can see the product is kind of built up right there. It's a lot of product. I have a little bit on my brush. I haven't put anything else back on my brush, and just kind of pull that through to the end. The ends are the most porous part of the hair. I don't care if it's virgin hair. She probably has boyfriend hair. It probably looks like a broom, and she's probably not gonna let you cut it. So those ends are super porous. You won't need a whole lot of product. It's gonna grab, whether it's color or whether it's lighter. Let that fall over, okay? Pick up your next piece. You've already painted zone 2. Come in at zone 1, both sides. Make sure it's really saturated. If you need more, put more and pull that through. And see how I'm taking that and letting that fall over. Look at that. That root right there didn't have any product on it. Make sure it's covered. let that fall over. Does anybody have any questions what we're doing on this next quadrant? I want you to go through, time-wise, I want you to work fast. Does everybody have enough cholesterol? Do we need to walk around with some cholesterol? I want you to do one of your back quadrants, zone 2, then zone 1, pull it through to zone 3. If you finish with that quadrant, go to the next quadrant. But I want you to finish zone 2, 1, and 3 on one quadrant completely before you start on the other side.
Do you wanna check zone 2 before we do zone 1 and 3?
Yeah, just kind of flag at us a little bit. And this again, when you're doing this application, let me get out of the hole over here. Again, when you're doing this application, this is where the entire head is gonna be done. You are going to paint every strand of hair when you're doing a virgin application like this. You want to work fast and furious. Small pieces, a good even saturation, and keep going. Don't pet the hair. Put it on and go.
So this is, we're gonna work on this one now, so what you're gonna do is
Once you get out of that little corner in the top and you're holding wider pieces, you'll feel like you're kind of moving a little bit faster. I got something weird going on here. How long this is. But whatever you don't catch on zone 2, you want to, I mean, like you don't want to think like this, you don't want to think like, oh, I can catch it next go around. But whatever you don't do in zone 2, you're going to notice that when you go back to paint zone 1. So get it on there, a good amount of product so that when you pull that from 1 to 3, whatever you put on zone 2, you're going to share it. Does that make sense to everybody? Because that's gonna, you kind of pull that down into zone 3. You don't want it falling in the floor. You don't want so much product on there that it's going to drip in the floor. Is anybody using the comb and the brush? Is that a pretty cool technique? Everybody like it or hate it or hard to get used to or what?
I think I
Yeah, once you get used to it, it's almost impossible not to do it. But like I said, you don't have to. It's just the way I was trained. So in a minute, not in a minute, but like before we leave today, I have some papers to give y'all that you will mark what you do in here. So like today, each quadrant is counted as 1. So like we are gonna have 2 for the day virgin applications and 2 for the day regrowth applications. So what color were their folders? Were they navy blue? Okay, so y'all's green folder that has your schedule in it and maybe something else in it, we can use that folder. We'll hole punch these and we'll put that in there. You need to bring your green folder every time to class. Also, the information that I gave y'all first day, that I told y'all we will be using throughout the semester, we can hole punch that and put that in there as well. That'll be a good place for it, because if you're in class, you should have that folder with you, because that's where we're going to keep up with our hours for this class at. the papers that we're gonna give you has, pages for facial, for nail, all that kind of stuff. We ain't worried about none of that. We're not doing that in here. So what you will be marking in this class will be color, possibly shampoos, maybe blow dries, because we won't be doing cut or anything else in here. I'm going to run out of product and I'm gonna leave it at there. Thursday, I don't know if we told y'all this or not, that's the bad part of splitting the classes up. Thursday, I am off this week from the Rockmart campus, so I have Thursday available this week. If anybody missed, the first day was an orientation day. The second day was color theory, the law of color, underlying pigment. I gave out worksheets, handouts that I created for that. The third week was a touch on that, but moving into what developer to use, and I can't remember what else. But if you missed, not orientation day, if you missed the color theory day or the developer day, the 2 days of color theory, if you missed those, we are gonna be in here Thursday at 9 o'clock to go over that again. Thursday at 9 o'clock. I get my classes confused. I don't know who in here missed or who in here did not miss due to illness. If you missed due to illness, this is your last opportunity to have a verbal class makeup day. After that, it's on you. If you don't understand it, if you're not able to make it or whatever, it's up to you to read it, understand it in the book. If you don't understand it, you will not get the same breakdown of the law of color or theory like everybody else did. If you just want to come Thursday because those 2 classes went pretty fast and you want to have a refresher of that information, you're welcome to come. But if you miss those classes due to illness, I highly recommend that you are here. It will not be repeated again. Not from an instructor point of view anyway. We will try to be done by 12, but those 2 classes were on 2 different days and they were 3-hour classes each. But I'm gonna try to get in as much as I can those 2 days so that our entire day is not tied up. But we will stay over past 12 if we need to.
Yeah, I think people want you there.
This mannequin made them all better later. She's gonna be so uneven because I didn't do that one quadrant at all. I've run out of product on this quadrant and I'm not gonna mix more.
Do we need to do the other quadrant first, then do the root, or?
Nope, do zone 2 on quadrant 3, do zone 2, and then go back and do zone 1 and 3. Finish that entire quadrant before you start on the other one. That way you have plenty of time that I know that you've gotten all steps, like zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. So I purposely tried to mess up one of my quadrants last class, so you could see like the right and the wrong. And even when I purposely tried to mess it up, I didn't mess it up. So this one, however, is gonna be a different story because I'm running out of product and I'm not mixing more. So this one's gonna look pretty rough. Another reason when you're doing a virgin application, you don't want to start directly on the scalp. The most important is the hot spot as far as like the end result. But a big part of it is you don't want this chemical, especially if you're doing a lightener, you don't want that sitting on that scalp through this entire process. Like through step 1, through step 2, through step 3. Because if you stay about a ½ inch to an inch off of the scalp when you're painting zone 2, as that starts to get hot, it's also gonna start to run, and it's gonna hit that scalp area even before you paint it on there. If you've ever had lightener painted straight to your scalp, you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say it burns. I've told y'all several times to make sure that you know your product, the mix ratio, if it says 1:1 or 1:2, that kind of thing. Also, pay attention to your other tools that you have, such as the bowls. I have one matrix bowl up here and I have one Rusk bowl up here. The matrix and Rusk bowls both have lines in the bottom of the bowl that says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? Both of them have that. Does anybody know what those lines are for? What is it now?
For the measurement of the product?
Yes, but on a more specific note, well, the ounces is on the side of it, but that in the bottom, if somebody ever says a ribbon inch of color, that means that you take your tube of color and a color key typically, and you roll that color out just the same as like you're gonna roll toothpaste out, and you roll it a ribbon inch. That's what the lines in the bottom of these bowls are for. Okay? So Rusk is an Italian color line. They don't always measure the same as we do. They may not measure in ounce. They may not measure in gram like I do. So one side of this bowl, I believe, is milliliter, I think. and then one side of this bowl is in ounce. So if you ever did not have a beaker, but you still needed to measure out your developer, and you had a bowl that had the markings on it, you could pour it in here just the same and measure out your ounces of your developer without having a beaker. There's a pour spout out on here if you needed to pour it into another bowl for whatever reason. So the sides of this rusk bowl is so that if you're wanting to get the excess color off your bowl, off your brush, on the matrix bowl, that's right here, okay? Huh? Yeah, if you finish one, we'll leave it there for you. Still zone 2, and we'll leave it. Okay, so both of these bowls also have like the little speed bump thing in the bottom of the bowl. That is for, you need cholesterol? That is for, to prop your brush, so that your brush isn't falling all down in product. So not only do you need to understand like the markings on the side of a color tube, but sometimes the actual bowl itself is a pretty handy tool to have if you don't have a beaker or another source of measuring. Yes? Yep. Just so that you get that pattern down. So how does everybody feel about these application techniques? Feel okay? Okay. So once we start working with actual chemical while on the mannequin, it's going to be hard to see a true end result that's going to match the swatch book, I guess, because the mannequin has no heat. Even if you put it under heat, there is no cuticle to lift to grab the pigment, or there is no cuticle to release the pigment. So hopefully at some point we will be able to work on outside clients or each other so that y'all can see more of how the chemicals react on real hair with real body heat. One thing that I don't know, did I tell y'all about barrier cream? I don't remember.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, yeah, so I always have, Rusk has a new product, it's a 10-minute color, like the process time is 10 minutes. It takes me longer to mix it and apply it than it does for it to process. So when I say you work super fast, you work super fast, because that 10 minutes is working whether it's on the head or in the bowl. But it also covers gray in 10 minutes versus 45 minutes. It is awesome. It is an awesome, awesome product.
Milkshake has a 10-minute color that works really good.
This 10-minute, like for gray, Schwarzkopf had one probably 10 or 15 years ago. I don't know if they still do, like, 'cause they come out with stuff and then discontinue stuff so often that I can't keep up with, like, every brand to know who does what. But, I definitely have to use a protective or barrier cream on the hairline with that 10-minute color, cause it grabs that skin, like it sticks.
We do a lot of the dark browns.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, girl, you look like you got in a war on the dang Indian field, but okay, on the battlefield. You look like you got painted up like the Indians. And then it falls over, like when you're flipping it over and it hits their face, just that little bitty bit, then it's like right on their eye and cheekbone, and I'm like, ooh.
Do you want us to go ahead and start on the other side?
Yes. If you finish the full quadrant, which we're just gonna refer to it as 3, go ahead and move on to 4. Remember, when you move on to 4, it's zone 2 all the way down. Then go back and pick up 1, pull 1 into 2, into 3, and pick up your next section. So if we work with chemical next week, does everybody feel comfortable working with that, now that we just got this basic application down? I don't feel like we just need to keep on with cholesterol. That gives you the practice in the application, but you can't see the end result. You can see it on what I did up here, but like I said, I tried to do one side purposely wrong and still get it right. So if you've got large sections, that would absolutely tell on you if we use Lightner next week. Does everybody have 2 mannequins? Okay. It does not matter if it's curly or if it's straight. So like y'all that come in from the chemical texture class and you had your curly mannequin where you had rolled the perm, it's going to do just the same whether it's curly or whether it's straight. It's just more of a hassle for you on each one of those sections because that texture gives you volume, and it's harder to tell while you're learning. It's harder to tell how big your section is and to fight through the tangles at the same time. Hit the middle of that, Valerie. No, not that middle, like on zone 1, like you get the left side of it, you get the right side of it, but I can see from here where that middle wasn't hit. So, like you get here, and you get here, how about we go there and go there? Do zone 2 from top to bottom, and then go back and do the same thing, you do 1 here, but you do zone 2 first, all the way down. Y'all, if we were doing the entire head, we would do the entire head zone 2 first. So if this client come in, if y'all's natural level 3 client come in, y'all's natural level 6 client come in, and this was a virgin color, we would do zone 2 first from start to finish, and then go back and pick up zone 1, pull that through to 2 to 3, all the way over the head. Now, if you are depositing only, it's not that big of a deal. But if you are lifting at all whatsoever, whether you're using 20 volume, 30 volume, 40 volume color or Lightner, you've got to start at least a ½ inch off the head first. okay, we all finished, and we checked it, either Jesse or myself, either one. If you checked it, if you have an excessive amount of cholesterol that does not have hair in it, it's okay to put it back into the bottle, the big bottle of cholesterol. If you have just a little bit of cholesterol in your bowl, wipe it out with a paper towel, put that in the trash, and then rinse your bowl out. Do not wash a big glob of cholesterol down the drain. It will stop the drains up, whether it's the sink or the bowls, and that is a disaster. That is no fun. Then we end up without one or the other until we can get a plumber in here. Okay, so I'm going to use her mannequin as an example of what not to do. So when you get finished, and it's whether you've painted the root only or whether you've painted zone 2, 1, and 3, do not comb this down slick to the head, okay? Do not comb that down. Do not. If you want to comb color through, because I'll do this sometimes if I'm doing a shadow root, and if I'm on the root only, and I don't want that to have a real harsh line of demarcation because I want it to be more shadowy, I will take a comb and pull that through into the top of that zone 2 a little bit. That's okay, if that's the end result that you're wanting, okay? Or I will just take my fingers and kind of smudge that down in there a little bit and flip that over. I'll keep a towel, I'll kind of wipe the excess off, I'll do that. Unless you are creating a shadow root, do not do that. You want to keep your hair lifted up off the head. This is exaggerating that, but you want, when you let that hair down, you want to still be able to kind of see each little section that you took. That allows air to get in there, that oxidizes, and that helps it to work. If you take the hair, and you will see this in the salon, somebody's going to do it. If you take the hair after a color and you do this number to it, and you twist it around, and you tie it up on the head like Cindy Lou Who, and you do like that, perfect. It's off of her neck, it's out of her face, but what is it not doing? Right. If it's not oxidizing, it's not doing exactly what it needs to do. It's going to do something, but it's not going to be at its full potential. Also, when you do this, you can create the body heat to focus in one area more than the other, instead of it coming off the scalp and being an even distribution of air and body heat. So do not take your hair after a color application and twist it up and make a Christmas tree out of it. It might be out of her face, but at the end of the day, it may or may not give you a good end result. So when you get your shampoo ready, so when you get quad 3 and 4 done and we've checked it, put your cholesterol, if you have enough to put back in the container. Don't rake the sides to get one little smidge back in the container. Use a paper towel and wipe that out. You're welcome to shampoo and start cleaning up for the day. Remember, when you leave this shampoo area, I don't care if there's a line of 10 people behind you, you still clean up yourself so that that second person can go straight into shampooing without cleaning the bowl. So did you do this and on this side? It's all one of three. Okay. Let's go ahead and look through. Let's see right here. That cholesterol? Yeah. Grab some. Hey, did you have any cholesterol left in your bowl?
Not enough to put back in.
No, okay. Is there enough? Do you need a whole lot?
No, just a little.
Do you mind if she uses what's there?
Yeah, it's not that much.
Is that, you think that'll be enough or you need more? If you need more, get more. Either way.